You were the smart one, the gifted kid, the one everyone thought would make it. So why do you feel so stuck? Why do you sit in rooms and feel like you're watching life happen to other people? Why do you feel like you're falling behind, even though everyone still calls you brilliant? It's not because you failed. It's because the very thing that once set you apart is now quietly working against you. You were praised for being sharp, rewarded for getting things right the first time, told that you were special, gifted, destined to stand out. But that praise had a hidden cost, because somewhere along the way, being smart stopped being a gift and started becoming a trap. Now you second-guess every decision. You avoid starting things you might not be good at. You stay quiet in rooms where you used to shine. And the worst part? You can't even explain why. Because on the outside, you still look fine. But on the inside, you feel stuck, numb, alone. And today we're going to talk about why and how you can finally start to undo it. When we're young, identity is simple. A kid might think of themselves as someone who loves dinosaurs or video games or chicken nuggets. It's playful, shallow, but that's how it starts. One-dimensional and easy to hold on to. And one of the most powerful labels a child can receive is this: you're smart. That phrase sticks. It gets repeated by parents, teachers, classmates. It becomes a lens, something you carry around and look at yourself through every single day. And at first, it feels amazing. Being smart gets you praise and attention. For a while, life feels easy. You pick things up quickly, finish your homework fast, get good grades without trying. It feels like a superpower. But there's a hidden cost. Because most of the time, when people say you're smart, they're not actually praising effort. They're praising effortless success. And that becomes a trap. Eventually, you start to believe that being smart means things should always come easy. That belief quietly rewires how you respond to challenge, failure, and growth. Because if struggling means you're not smart, you'll start doing everything in your power to avoid struggle altogether. As you grow older, the challenges change. School gets harder, life gets more complex. But if your identity is built on being the kid who doesn't need effort, then effort itself starts to feel like failure. You don't think this is hard. You think, what's wrong with me? If I'm supposed to be smart, why am I struggling? So you start to avoid challenge. You don't raise your hand unless you're certain. You don't try the new class or game or skill unless you already know you'll be good at it. Your world shrinks to what's familiar and safe. And instead of developing the self, you start maintaining the image. That's the trap. While others are learning, failing, and evolving, you're stuck preserving a version of yourself that no longer fits. The smart kid, the one who was supposed to be ahead. You maintain that image so carefully that you stop doing anything that might stretch you. And over time, your life begins to narrow. You stop exploring. You stop experimenting. You stop growing. And one day, you realize your identity is no longer a foundation. It's a cage. You're no longer trying to succeed. You're just trying not to be exposed. When you stop growing, you also start losing connection. Because connection doesn't happen in comfort zones. It happens through shared experiences. Struggle, awkwardness, working through things together. But when you're afraid of looking foolish, you step away from those moments. You don't join the club. You don't try the sport. You avoid the group project. You tell yourself you're too busy or uninterested, but really, it's fear. Fear of being seen trying. So you stay on the sidelines. You watch. You analyze. You convince yourself you're above it, that you're just more thoughtful, more independent. But while you're observing life, everyone else is living it. So you rely on what's familiar, your mind. You analyze people instead of relating to them. You observe conversations instead of joining them. You use your intelligence to simulate connection, but it's not the same as feeling it. And the longer you do this, the more exhausting it becomes. Now even socializing feels like something you have to be good at, another thing to get right. And so you begin to avoid that too. The loneliness deepens. Eventually, the pain of isolation becomes too sharp, and that's when the ego steps in to protect you. You tell yourself you're just different, that people don't get you because they're not as deep, that you're not lonely, just evolved. It's not pride, it's a defense. A way to make sense of the gap between you and everyone else. But that story builds a wall. A subtle kind of arrogance that isolates you even more. Even when you want to connect, you can't. Because now it feels like connection means giving up the identity that kept you safe. And connection requires the very thing you've spent years avoiding, vulnerability. Letting people see that you don't always have it together, that you're still figuring things out, that you're human. But that kind of honesty feels terrifying when your whole identity has been built on being impressive. So you stay behind the wall, still watching, still pretending, still lonely. The way forward starts with letting go of the identity you've been protecting. The smart one. Not because it was a lie, but because it's no longer helping you grow. When your value is tied to being effortlessly good at things, you avoid effort, risk, and failure. You protect the illusion, even at the cost of your own development. And eventually, that illusion cracks. So instead, you build something new. A self that's not based on being impressive, but on being willing to grow. You stop asking, "How do I look?" and start asking, "What helps me move forward?" You stop waiting to be perfect. You start showing up, awkward, unsure, human. And it feels like a setback, but it's not. It's the first real step toward freedom. You remember, your worth isn't in being special. It's in being real. And that means you're allowed to struggle. You're allowed to learn slowly. You're allowed to be lost and still worthy of connection. So if you're someone who feels stuck or disconnected or like you've outgrown the identity you were praised for, this is where you begin. You stop trying to be impressive. You start trying to be honest. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You just need to be someone who shows up. Even when it's hard, even when it's awkward, even when you're not sure you belong. Because that's when things start to shift. Not when you finally figure it all out, but when you stop hiding who you are. And the loneliness starts to lift. Not because you earned connection, but because you stopped rejecting it. You step down from the pedestal and into the world where the rest of us live. And it turns out that world isn't so bad. In fact, it's the only place where you can truly be seen. And finally, maybe for the first time, you start to feel at home. If any of this resonated with you, leave a comment. Let us know what clicked. You're probably not the only one who feels this way. And sometimes, naming the pattern is the first step to breaking it.